Ego Sebastian Cardinal Francis Spondeo Voveo ac Euro Sic me Deus adiuvet et hic sancta Dei Evangelia que manu mea tango.
Hello and welcome back to Catholics at Home. I am Mag. How are you today? It is so good to be back with you again, and we thank you for journeying with us through faith, reflection, and community. Now, whether you've been with us from the very beginning or if you just happen to stumble across us, we're grateful that you're here, and we hope that you'll continue walking with us in the seasons ahead. Now, before I bring you the guest for today's show, which you probably already know based on that little clip we saw before this, let me welcome back my Catholic brother-in-arms, Jonathan Pun, to join me on the show today.
Hello. Hey, Mac.
Hello,
How are you
JP.
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you talked about the season because I think this has been a great season to actually start off. And it's been a while, I'll have to share with you, right, that we've done a show together. But I'm really glad that we are able to do this today because it has been, the church has gone through a lot. And I think 2025 has been a momentous occasion for the
Absolutely.
Catholic Church. I'm just trying to recall as I was watching that clip, where was I when that happened? Where were you?
You were right at the center, weren't you? You were at the heart of everything.
Oh, okay. So there's a disclaimer. I don't want people to think that I was the one who recorded it from the Sistine Chapel because there were no cameras allowed. But that's just reflecting on that spiritual journey, and especially for our guest that's going to come on very shortly. I think that's going to be a very spiritual journey for him as well as for all of us here, because I think he really represented the voice of Malaysia in this conclave. But I'm just trying to remember all of the past couple of weeks and the amount of things that has taken place in our church. Such a significant milestone, and I'm so glad to be, I would say, living in this era where I'm able to witness all of this. And I think you also share that same sentiment, no?
Yep, of course, but not with front row seats live, you know what I mean. But it has been a significant and emotional year for all of us, Catholics all around the world. And I think, with the passing of our beloved Holy Father, that moved the hearts across the globe. Then the whole sacred process of the conclave, which followed shortly after, which brings us to our guest this morning, this wonderful day as well. So it's a new chapter. Right, a new chapter for the Catholic Church with the election of a new Pope, and also a new chapter for us at Catholics at Home as we begin a brand new season. So, JP, you want to bring on our guest today?
Yes, we are truly honored to welcome a very special guest, the man who not only represented Malaysia at the conclave, but who continues to inspire us with his wisdom, humility, and deep love for the Church. Mac, please join me in welcoming His Eminence Sebastian Cardinal Francis,
the Bishop of Penang.
Welcome to our show.
John.
Welcome,
you,
Your
John.
Eminence.
Thank you, that we
How are
all
you today?
Very alive, including Catholics online.
Yes.
Hopefully, we will stay alive for many years to come.
And on mission.
And on mission,
yes,
indeed.
Correct.
How have you been, Your Eminence? You've had a really interesting past couple of months.
Well, I was 1 month in Rome altogether, but I have turun Padang, balik kampung, and I have recovered, and I'm glad and happy to be back in Malaysia, back in Penang, and to be with you this day.
That's wonderful. Now,
I mean, for the whole experience, you mentioned that you were there for a month. It does sound like it was, I would think, in the conversation that we're going to be having, it would be also something new for you as well, as I understand it, Your Eminence.
Well, of course, it was brand new. It was my first experience. But, we have a general idea of what is going on. So in some ways, the church has prepared us, and it is not something, it's not about novelty really. It's about continuing with the tradition of the
Traditions.
church,
Absolutely.
which is known to all of us in some way.
Absolutely. Now, Your Eminence, as a Malaysian cardinal, let's jump right into that. What did it mean for you personally and spiritually to be entrusted with this role? I mean, can you walk us through, the preparation mentally, spiritually, and logistically? What goes into attending a whole conclave?
I think it is good to understand this whole process in three parts. One is the pre-conclave, the second is the conclave proper itself, and the third is the post-conclave. So there are three parts to it.
Mhm.
But it all starts on Easter Monday, the day after we celebrated the resurrection on Easter Sunday. And we hear these words, Sedevacante. That's Latin. And that simply means Pope Francis sudah meninggal dunia. Pope Francis has died. And the seat of Rome, of the chair of Peter, is vacant, is empty. And that's when everything begins to happen, And so, of course, we have to get used to it emotionally, spiritually, historically, this moment. And so it just starts with one simple word, Sedevacante. The chair is vacant. And actually, many people, are floating between the death of Pope Francis and the appointment of Pope Leo. But not many pause and consider what happens in those crucial 2 to 3 weeks when there's no Pope. Well, what happens to the church? Does everything come to a standstill? Who is in charge? Who makes decisions? And what struck me about this, now, of course, it's a few weeks since I've returned, so there's time to reflect and think back. And what struck me is that there are no gaps in the church. The moment the Pope dies, what happens? The College of Cardinals takes over. Collectively, we take over the governance of the church until the new Pope is elected. I think it's good to pause and think about that for a moment. So there is a crucial 2 to 3 weeks between Francis' death and Leo's appointment.
Mhm.
And I found that rather interesting, it may be dramatic, but it is also quite interesting how the church works turun padang when at a moment like this. And all the cardinals, both those who are eligible to vote, that means 879 and below, like me, I'm eligible, so I'm a cardinal elector. And those who are 80 and above, who are also cardinals but not eligible to vote, are invited to come back to Rome.
Yeah.
And spend time together. And these guys become responsible collectively for whatever happens from the moment Francis died till the moment Leo takes over. And there's one guy put in charge of all of us. So it's quite amusing almost that this one guy is called the Dean of the College of Cardinals. And this gentleman, his name is Cardinal Baptista Rey, is 90 over years old. And he is responsible to keep us together, and to make sure we all, do what we have to do, and to hold us together, and together under him to take full responsibility for the governance of the church during this period of Sedevacante. And I must say, this gentleman, Cardinal Ray, was a very, very pleasant, a very lively, a very energetic, a very cheerful, a wonderful human being. And in spite of his age, he was able to steer us throughout, especially the pre-conclave period. So that's the first impression. So of course, I fly to Rome, and we are of course focusing not on who is going to be the next pope, but we are focusing on how to give Francis a proper, dignified burial, preparing for his funeral mass, and as he wished to be buried at the Church of Mary, St. Mary Basilica of St. Mary Majors, which was his desire. So that's we try to keep that focus and not get distracted with who is going to be the next pope. We have to take it one step at a time. And I must say that Cardinal Ray did a marvelous job to make all these things flow properly. He was the cardinal who presided at the funeral mass of Pope Francis, which many of you have witnessed. So, any questions about this part before we move on?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you've actually broken it down to the pre-conclave, conclave, and post-conclave, and we're now focusing on the pre-conclave part of it, right? And you mentioned that the church has seamlessly transitioned into this. You know, for many people, it's that period of what should I do next? Who's going to be handling my house, or who's handling this and that? And there's just so many questions to do. But I like the fact that you mentioned that the dean. College of the Cardinal has actually centered everybody to focus on Pope Francis and the funeral. And really just, I would like to say maybe, like a guru basta to basically say, okay, all right, everybody, we're going to descend into Rome. We want everybody to focus on certain things. And I think it's having those and knowing very well that there's a college of cardinals that really is taking care of the church while all of this is happening. I think that solidifies the fact that, the faith is firm and it doesn't matter what happens, that there's going to always be this group of people and that the church will continue to run on its own as it is. But I'm really curious, Your Eminence, when you heard about the news, what went through your mind at that point in time? Was it like, okay, there's going to be a series of things to follow, and how did you because you talk about this whole experience, and I'm really intrigued as well by what was the preparation that you had to do? Was there a lot of, because you are also Bishop of Penang, so there will be a lot of administrative stuff to hand over to, right? So maybe a little bit of an insight about what went through your mind when the news broke.
Well, before Pope Francis died, I think that the way we bishops run our respective dioceses, teamwork and collaborative ministry in a very synodal kind of church prepares us to allow me to leave the diocese even for 1 month. And the system takes care of itself. The vicar generals, I have 3 vicar generals, take over the administration governance. One of them is responsible, though they work as a team of 3. So actually, it was rather peaceful. It was rather peaceful, and I could go and be quite free to go and not to be burdened with knowing that the diocese is in good hands, that we have a fantastic team of clergy, religious laity at the leadership level who will keep the diocese going. And with the electronic world we live in, we can be in touch, in contact any time of the day or night, anywhere in the world. So really it is quite pleasant, actually, quite pleasant, quite peaceful. Letting go of the diocese and moving on to Penang.
It feels
Yeah.
so seamless, isn't it? There's no, it's like, I don't have to
Yeah.
worry. My guys have it, don't have to worry. Let's go on to
Yeah.
what's next,
Yeah.
Focus on the
Yeah.
bigger picture.
Yeah. So, of course, you mentioned the word quite a few times that Malaysia, and I'm representing Malaysia. Um, to be quite honest, I don't feel that way. uh, because I think if we understand the church properly, when we are made cardinals by Pope, when I was made a cardinal by Pope Francis, we are made cardinals for the universal church first, and not because we represent a particular geographical or national or whatever area. uh. So the impression I had, the strong impression I had, especially after I landed in Rome, is that we were responsible for the universal church during this period of Sedevacante. And we were responsible collectively to eventually elect a new pope. So it is not about it being Malaysian or whatever, or being Singaporean or whatever. Because if you go by, so really the focus is not our individual historical, geographical, national, or even psychological profiles. Is not the primary concern. Even if that may be the concern of the media, uh, and who are profiling all this kind of stuff. So the first thing is that I felt that I am responsible with my brother cardinals for the universal church. Number two, I am very sensitive of those who are not present. There are only 133 of us who are fit and healthy and able to show up in Rome, who are eligible to be in the Sistine Chapel for the conclave. Only 133 of us. And that doesn't represent all the countries in the world. There are many countries, even in Asia, that were not represented at the conclave. So what about them? I'm very sensitive about who is not present. For example, Cambodia was not there, Laos was not there, North Korea was not there, um, Nepal was not there, and so on and so forth. I'm just talking about Asian countries. And even some countries where they may have a cardinal, but he's 80 and above, and therefore not eligible to vote. So this very strong feeling that we 133 of us, that's how I felt, represent everyone. Represent those, the universal church, number one, represent all who are not present, number two, represent many bishops, in fact, who are not there, represent many religious who are not there, represent the laity who are totally not there, represent everyone really. And finally, okay, I'm a Malaysian, that's fine, that's good. But really, it is not, we are not there representing a particular country, because then it makes no sense with the many countries that were not present, not represented by a cardinal who is eligible to vote.
Yeah.
So I think I find that rather actually quite exciting actually, to think beyond borders, to think beyond borders. That's Catholic. That's what it means to be Catholic.
Yay, amen. I like the way you said that, Cardinal, because it's like, it's true, isn't it? It's one universal Catholic Church and representing those who are unrepresented there as well. So that's just beautiful how you said that. Now, let's jump into the conclave. What was the atmosphere like once all the cardinals gathered in the Sistine Chapel? I mean, without breaching any confidentiality, can you share with us what struck you the most about the entire process?
So let's move gently
Gently,
into
indeed.
into the Sistine Chapel, because we gave Francis a proper funeral, okay. Then we didn't jump into the thing. We spent about 7 to 8 days mourning
Yep.
the death of Francis. And during this time, we had pre-conclave conferences
Hmm.
where we met every morning uh, in an aula in a particular place. And during these pre-conclave sessions, all the cardinals were invited to be there, including those who are 80 and above,
Mm.
as well as us. And we were given a little bit of a briefing on the condition of the Universal Church, on the condition of the governance of the Holy See, and so on and so forth. But what inspired me was to see a good number of cardinals who need not have been there because they are 80 and above. And some of these guys are on wheelchairs, and some of them are coming with their walking sticks.
Yep.
And they showed their tremendous love and concern for the church and for us during this period of time. They could have stayed back and enjoyed their retirement and need not have traveled to Rome. And yet, about 40 to 50 of them were there with us. And it was a chance for all of us, about 100 and about 200 of us, okay, to express our concerns for the church, whether universal church, particular church, etc.
Mm.
And it was only after the mourning period was over and we had about several days of these pre-conclave conferences. And of course, one of us who is sitting there is going to be the next pope and who is listening to all these conversations that are going on. So I'm quite amazed at how gentle the whole process was, and how how gentle and respectful the whole process was. Took me by surprise. It's not the kind of mumbo jumbo you see in Hollywood and and in the movie The Conclave. It's all crap. Sorry for that. That is not what came out in the movie The Conclave. It may get an Oscar award, but it doesn't matter. It's no big deal. But that is not what my experience was. And of course, that is the pre-conclave. And with that, we are now ready to enter into the Sistine Chapel. That's the second, of course, the most intense phase. Now, when it comes to this moment, only 133 of us are allowed in there. All those, including Cardinal Baptista Rey, who guided us and kept us together in the pre-conclave, even he could not enter because he is in his 90s. And only those who are eligible, 133 of us, 2 gentlemen cardinals were not there because they were sick and were not able to be with us.
Mhm.
So everybody has had to be there. And if you are not there, you have good reasons not to be there. And there were only 2, and they had good reasons not to be there because they were sick and could not travel. And then we began the conclave proper with a spiritual input by Cardinal Cantalamessa, another well-known name, who was the retreat master of the Pope. And this gentleman who gave us the spiritual input at the beginning of the conclave proper within the Sistine Chapel, he himself is in his 90s. And there's a second guy in his 90s who is leading us. And he spoke for almost an hour and gave us a spiritual input. I was amazed at how he was able to put all the pieces of what's happening to the Universal Church together and give it a spiritual orientation. And he himself, after giving us this input, this spiritual input, had to leave. He had to leave too. So absolutely no outsiders, no one, including retired cardinals. And the doors are closed.
Yeah.
No helpers, nobody is inside there. And we are there for better, for worse, to do what we have to do.
Brothers in arms.
Yeah. And of course, what took the world by surprise is that within 48 hours, and with just 4 ballots, we heard the words and the white smoke came out. And the speed with which these 133 men elected the new Pope, which I believe is appointed by Christ, as Christ appointed Peter. Peter was not elected by the 11 apostles.
Yeah.
He was appointed by Christ. But the historical Christ is no longer with us. So we 133 cardinals had to endorse, do a kind of a voting to show that this is the man God has appointed. And he's not just the successor of Francis. Pope Francis, he's the successor of St. Peter. That is not just bring it down to Francis and Leo.
Yeah.
There is a long story here that begins with Peter. And every one of them who is made a pope or elected a pope is appointed by God. And we, 133, endorsed that. The requirements, the canonical requirements are 2/3 majority or even more. And what I think surprised the world was these 133 guys got a pope within less than 48 hours. Now, if this does not show a kind of unity in the church, I don't know what shows that. With all the hullabaloo that goes on in the media, etc. But that was not my experience. So it was very solemn, the 48 hours. It was very silent. There is no talks, no discussions, no sharings, no debates, no argument, nothing. A spiritual input, and we get down to work. That's it. And within 48 hours, we heard the words uttered from the balcony, Habemus Papam, announced to Rome and to the whole world.
Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem XIV.
That's internally what I felt. I did not realize what struck me was the utter simplicity of the whole process. That really took me by surprise. And my love for Christ and for the church has increased because of what I witnessed and saw with my own eyes and ears. And so that's we had Michelangelo's painting of the Last Judgment looking down on us.
Yeah.
In the Sistine Chapel. Now, this is kind of personal. I was not very moved by that overbearing Last Judgment of Michelangelo, of the Last Judgment. I am more excited about the visuals of the Last Judgment as depicted in the Gospel of Matthew, where the Last Judgment is about feeding those who are hungry and thirsty, clothing the naked, about welcoming the stranger, visiting the prisoner and the sick. It's about sheep and goats. It's about heaven and hell, and not this kind of. Anyway, that is the Last Judgment that is looking down on us and reminding us, hello, you guys. Well,
You have a
You
job
know?
to do.
Not even a job, you will be judged. That's why Pope Benedict decided that the conclave will happen in the Sistine Chapel and not anywhere else. So these are the little things that I can share openly. So, of course, that's it. Within 48 hours, everybody was taken by surprise. We got a new guy, a new pope.
It's
That's
interesting
the
that
story.
you brought it up, Cardinal, because in this sharing, you've talked about the world being surprised and everyone out there being surprised, and it's almost as if once you've entered the Sistine Chapel, that you have completely been cut off from the world. Because I'll tell you what happened from our side of the world, right? So days leading up to the conclave, the media was playing up, and every media outlet seemed to have their favorite cardinal that is supposed to be, right? I use the word supposed to be, the next pope, for example, and just
The
so
favorites,
much
the
of,
crowd
yeah,
favorites.
exactly, the crowd favorites. Different medias would have their ranking of the pros and cons and this and that, and it is so easy for us from an outside perspective to be so distracted. But just hearing your experience about how once you're in there, it's sealed, and it's just you and the College of Cardinals are eligible to vote, being in that sacred space, and just deliberating and praying for the Holy Spirit, and basically to make that decision. And it sounds marvelous. In fact, if only I could be that fly on the wall for 48 hours so that there was no such
listen.
distraction that I just described. Yeah, I don't know. My perspective of it was every media outlet was just busy being a pundit.
Yes.
Talking about this. And it's so easy for us to get carried away from the secular perspective, right? But
Entertainment is okay. We all need entertainment at this point, including Cardinal.
I like that, Cardinal.
Cardinal,
No,
you mentioned the movie The Conclave. Did you see it already?
Actually, I chose not to see it
Okay.
because I had a feeling it was going to be a distraction.
Okay.
And I chose not to see it. But I have to make a confession. I was so bored on the flight from Penang to Rome. And this movie was being shown on the flight. And I saw it. And, it was predictable. It was stereotype. It's okay. It doesn't matter. But actually, I was inclined not to see it. And I told my friends I choose not to see it. But
Fair
anyway,
enough.
I was stupid enough to watch it.
I mean, curiosity gets the best of us at the end of the day,
So boredom.
Out of boredom. Fair enough.
Out of boredom,
Fair
yes.
enough. I think because of everything that was going on, people wanted to know what was happening. And I think the movie was the next thing they would have turned to.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to
It's
sideline a little
understandable.
bit. Yeah, just sideline a little bit. Is there any truth to what the movie has told?
I'm not impressed at all.
Okay.
It is
It is nothing like the real thing.
Hollywood has to sell,
Yeah.
and
It's true.
their purpose is profits. It's a profit margin. It's whether it's saleable or not. And that's all. No other comments about it. It's
About the movie.
stereotype. It's stereotype, and anyway, it's going to get probably may get an award. So let it be. God bless them.
So you hear it first in Catholics at Home that Cardinal is saying it's not worth the popcorn, it's fine. It's purely entertainment, and he watched it out of boredom. But I think it's more important to talk about, as you were entering the conclave, Cardinal, I just wanted to, is there a particular prayer or a particular stage, that you would invoke as you were getting ready for that part, or because of the formation that you talked about, the pre-conclave gathering, were there anything that you thought really moved you spiritually as you were preparing yourself? Because I am sure already in that sacred space, you would feel all sorts of things. Like for any one of us to go to St. Peter's, for example, Basilica, let alone going to Sistine Chapel, right? Like, what was your experience like?
Well, as I said, it was 4 sessions, and within 48 hours. Intense, yes, but I was struck by the whole simplicity, peaceful, solemn, contemplative. There was an absence of noise, an absence of debates, an absence of dominance, an absence of manipulation, no sharing, no discussions, no inputs after the doors were closed. Just getting down to letting the Holy Spirit move each one of us in the direction that our conscience led us. That's it. It's so simple that it is so unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, correct.
Like
It's like
inconceivable that in this day and age, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
and no gadgets, no electronics, all removed, no connections whatsoever. I'm surprised how they can even do this from a technological point of view today. I'm a bit surprised. I'm not interested in the technology, but that's it, you know.
beauty and simplicity.
Yeah, and I'm surprised by the simplicity and beauty of the Catholic Church at a moment like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Cardinal, I'm just curious though, from the point of view from every common Catholic out there, I think the Archdiocese also has like shared, this is the rooms that the cardinals would stay in. These are the meals, the simplicity of it all. Is that true? I mean, it has to be like bare minimum. It is the simplest of things so that you can be, guided by the Holy Spirit in that sacred moment.
Yeah, I stayed at Santa Marta, which is where most of us stayed. And we have to stay there. We can't stay anywhere else. And, well, everything was normal, nothing extravagant. There was no air conditioning in our rooms. There was no fan even.
Oh, no.
There was, because it's anyway, that was the realities on the ground. And I didn't hear anyone complaining or grumbling or anyway, just that meals were good, was normal, simple.
Very nice.
And time for us to meet and have fellowship and so on and so forth.
That's
Actually,
beautiful.
be surprised how simple your church is. And
Yeah.
it's not complicated. It's not. It's quite a simple. And this was my experience anyway. And all of us are equals. All of us are equals. All
Beautiful.
133 of us. Nobody takes precedence. We are equals. But of course, somebody has to lead us during that time. And at the pre-conclave, it was the Dean of the Cardinals. And within the conclave, it was the Camerlengo, who is a cardinal himself and who was an elector. And we do it all among ourselves. No one to help us. We have to do it ourselves because no one is allowed in. That's it. So, as I said, my love for the church has been enhanced.
Yeah.
Now I can understand why the church is able to be faithful to the continuity. So it's not only about Francis or about Leo, but it is about the continuity of the mission. And it is that in between there are no gaps. Nobody needs to feel left, feel abandoned during transitions. And everybody is looked after and the church is well cared for, even in between popes. Yeah. So I'm kind of amazed by the Sure. How this can happen in a time in an age like this, when everything is so sophisticated, and we return back to the simple, basic truths about life and about
Yeah.
continuity. So that's why I look quite refreshed and not too tired.
And probably the 48 hours of no phone, no gadgets has also kind of helped you, Cardinal, in really being restful and really focusing on
The
the
detox.
At least 48 hours of not being a scatterbrain.
Yes, correct. He said it so well.
Yes, I
No,
think I'm definitely guilty for that, right? Having a task on my phone that reminds me, all right, you need to do this now, you need to do that now, and for 48 hours, Cardinal has the luxury of not doing any of that because he's in the presence
Absolutely.
of something sacred.
So, I'd like to just end up with something like this. Pope Leo, a simple man in white, okay, and only one guy in white, that is the Pope, but surrounded by many others in red,
Yeah.
and those are his cardinals in purple, and those are the bishops of the Universal Church, and in black, and those are the priests and deacons, and all the colors of the rainbow representing the young, the old, the women, the men,
People.
the religious, etc., etc., etc. So, of course, we had the day after he was elected, the morning after, he summoned all of us for a session. Now, this is the post-conclave now.
Mm.
He summoned all of us, he meaning the Pope Leo, for a tete-a-tete, a meeting with him. For us, again, the older cardinals were asked to come back, those who wanted to. And those electors, 133 plus the older cardinals, had a meeting, a conversation with the Pope. He listened most of the time to our concerns about the church with minimal interventions from him. And he gave us an email where we could continue to bring our concerns to him via an email. And then we prepared for his inauguration. So the inauguration took place a few days later. And then after the inauguration, I packed my bags and balik kampung, turun Padang, back to Penang. That's it. So
Cardinal,
that's
where were you
what
when the
happened
news
in
broke?
post-conclave. Pardon?
Where were you when the news broke? When they announced at the balcony? Were you around? Were you in
I
the
was
building?
up there. All of us were invited to be with him at the balcony.
Yeah, at the
because
side balconies.
there
Yeah.
are many balconies. He was in the center. We were in the other balconies.
Yeah.
He's facing the crowd.
I thought that was so cute to see all our red cardinals at the side balconies. It was such a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
Cardinal, I'm just
So we are aware that we have left him back alone there in Rome, and we have all come back. And of course, the spirit of unity and continuity is very strong. Not just unity, but also of continuity.
absolutely. Cardinal, for those who are not aware or who don't realize the importance of the conclave, maybe you can just tell us why the conclave is a vital part of the church's identity in terms of continuing the church as well.
Well, somebody has to elect the Pope. Someone has to do it. So it's really, and in our tradition, it is the cardinal who are 79 and below who are asked to do this job. And that's the rule for the time being. So really it's a question of getting on with the job, get it done. And that's it, I mean, how else are you going to do it? Christ is no longer physically with us to appoint Peter as he did.
Yeah.
And he has now entrusted the task to the church, and somebody in the church has to continue with this tradition. That's it. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what other answer to give, other than say, let's get back to basics, get back to fundamentals, get back to, can there be another system? If there is, the Pope will have to endorse the new system.
Correct.
But for the time being, this is the system. I'm sure it can change if the Pope so wishes to. It can, for example, is it possible that one day all the bishops elect Pope from all over the world?
Yeah.
Well, it will be technologically more challenging, But this is the tradition, and it has to be done, and we did it, and we came back home,
Very nice.
And by the way, he's the what is he? What number is he, Chris? 300
267th.
Yeah, this has happened 267 times in the history of the church.
Yeah.
It's not a novelty,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have the records for it going back
Yep.
2,000 years. It has happened 260. How many? This guy,
7.
Pope Leo
This
is 267.
Yeah.
Okay, so it has happened 266 times in the
Yes.
history of the church. So we are not some kind of aliens who have come down from outer space.
It's not a fly-by-night operation, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That is why for me, the best description of Pope Leo is a simple man of God, full stop. It's not about ideology, it's not about, whatever. It's a simple man of God. And he's appointed by Jesus. I think I hope all 133 of us cardinals understand that. And we just have to endorse it. That's all. Through a vote. I can't imagine how else it can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even for you, this is something that we have to do. This is something that we've been doing for the past 200 over years. And it is definitely we have a proven track record that this works. Now, how can we, as the faithful, better understand and appreciate this whole process?
I think each one will react or respond or
Differently.
in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on whether what your expectations are, what your aspirations are, what your hopes are, what your and ultimately it is a question of whether each Catholic trusts in this process or does not trust in it. But I think the majority of Catholics respect this process and understand it, and understand that it is not a divine rule, but it is a law that has been created by the Church for the continuity of the Petrine ministry, and it can evolve, it can change. So it can be entrusted to a larger group maybe, but it's up to the Pope to make that decision together with his collaborators. So I think most Catholics are very intelligent and very smart and very integrated people who understand the traditions of the Church and how it has served us for 2,000 years. And it is still there.
Yeah.
It is still there. If we can come out with a better system, why not?
Why not?
But it seems to work.
Let's not change what's been working so far.
Yeah, it's not broken. Don't fix it.
Yeah, it's not broken.
I wanted to just get some insights from a post-conclave perspective. The last time a conclave was convened, I think some of our youths are not even born yet, perhaps. And at that time, it was the dawn of the new social media. And now, fast forward to 2025, clearly a lot of the youths of the church, or whether they are even not practicing the faith or non-believers, they are also watching intensely and just trying to understand what is this conclave about. So from a youth perspective, I think a lot of them are actually out there and questioning their faith, perhaps, and also having questions about the faith, not from just a conclave perspective, but this perhaps would spur them to want to know more. I'm just wondering from your perspective, right? Okay, as a representative of the Universal Church, not just Malaysia, not just Penang, but the Universal Church, what would be the kind of message that you would like to bring back now that you're turun padang and you're back already a month later? What would be some of the key takeaways and insights from a youth perspective that you think would be very good for us to all take away from today and also from moving forward?
Yeah, I think I do not want to join the bandwagon and put labels on our young people. Too many labels. People of all types, all walks of life in the church and outside have put labels on young people. And I wish to hear the young people speak for themselves and not what adults think of them or elders think of them. That's all fine, but I think young people have a vision, and they are interested in a mission. And I think we got to listen to them more than talk about them. So the World Youth Day is coming in Korea.
Yep.
I have a parish in Rome that is assigned to me. I think that is the way they try to impress upon the cardinals that they are part of the Church of Rome to help the Pope with administer the Diocese of Rome. And he's the Bishop of Rome, that's why he's the Pope. And that's another way of looking at it. So there are 100 young people from my parish alone in Italy. I was with them for about 2 weeks, who are coming to Penang during the World Youth Day and going on from Penang to Korea. Now that's 100 young Italian young people coming for the World Youth Day. So I am a bit bored with all these labels put on young people. And I tend not to believe in it too much. And I would prefer young people to speak for themselves. And not only about me, elder people accompanying young people, but because the word accompaniment has become quite big with youth. And I think it is not only about we accompanying them, but it's about they accompanying me and the other way around. So that's all I have to say about young people.
So beautifully put. Thank you, Cardinal.
I think with that, we've basically covered everything that we needed to ask the Cardinal this beautiful day. I mean, the fact that, you took time off to explain things to us, to paint a clearer picture that there's no grandeur or anything that goes into, there's nothing extravagant that goes into the conclave. Everything's just in simplicity. Everything's simple and guided by the Holy Spirit. There's divine intervention in everything. And that's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Cardinal, I don't know whether you have anything that you would like to share with our audience of Catholics at home. I wouldn't want to say parting words because we speak to you quite regularly. And anything, message of hope, of anything for that matter that you would like to convey.
Well, you are at home, Catholics at home. I'm at home too. And I'm having this interview from my house. So home is a good place to be. So enjoy home, enjoy family, and keep the family alive. And have deep gratitude for the gift of family and the gift of marriage and the gift of children. And I told my people in Rome, in my parish, please have more children. The world is dying, it's getting too old. And that's why we are so bored, I think. There's not enough of and Asia is young.
Yeah.
And Africa is still young, with exceptions. Japan, Korea, and other places are exceptions. And I think we have to tell people, get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals, and have more children. And we need home, we need family, we need marriage, we need children, and we need a lot of young people. God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you too,
Thank you.
Cardinal. Thank you so much. What a gift it has been to hear firsthand from His Eminence Cardinal Sebastian Francis today, a witness to one of the Church's most sacred and pivotal moments. As we continue this season of Catholics at Home, where his words remind us that the Church is alive, ever guided by the Spirit and rooted in hope, even in times of change. So thank you once again, Cardinal, for joining us. Thank you for joining us as well. If this episode touched your heart or gave you a deeper understanding of our faith, then share it with someone you love. Until the next time, stay rooted, stay inspired, and stay faithful. God bless you. Bye.